Hi guys, happy week 7. We're almost there, almost halfway. You're doing a great job. So I am glad you had so much good things to talk about with this book because of Mr. Turrup. And Logan, you did a great job saying this, and I was going to say it myself, is that you could even tell who's writing the chapter without looking at who's actually writing the chapter. Just you got to know the students by their tone of voice and like what the words they would say. And if you notice about Alexis, it was like she said that all the time, and then Jessica was very precise in her speaking, and the other boys had their own kind of dialogue. So I absolutely love this. So if you're teaching point of view with this is a fantastic way to do that. It reminds me of an adult book. This is not a children's book, but there's an adult book called The Poisonwood Bible by Barbara Kingsglover, and she wrote an entire novel this way, and each one of her daughters writes about the same incident, but every daughter is telling it in a different chapter with a different point of view. Super, super interesting way to write. I think it's a fun way to read it too. So I think you guys did a great job on that. And so your projects, fantastic. The poster boards were amazing. I love those. So if anybody else comes up with some great ideas that I haven't seen yet, bring them in. I am recording this a couple days early, so if I haven't seen all of them yet, I will definitely get to them. But the poster boards were great. The books were great. The different colors of words as far as different characters was fantastic. And of course, hopefully by now you've all read the book, so you know the twist at the end. He does get to come back. So that was going to be my thing. It's like, if we have 2 books right in a row and somebody dies, that's not very good. So I'm really glad he didn't die at the end of the book. And because there's a 4-part series to this book, I assumed he didn't, but it's a nice twist at the end when they have kind of like a happy ending. Okay, so that kind of brings us up is to, why do children's books have some sad, like adult type of situations in them? I mean, a coma, death, those things are going to come up in real life as well. Why do you think it's in children's books? Well, one of the answers is because it has to mirror real life. Right? So if we lived in a Disney world and then Disney, kind of like everything's happy and wonderful all the time, that's not real life. And second of all, it'd be boring, right? There's no climax to the story. If you remember, like the ideas of literature, you've got to have a conflict, you got to have a problem, you have to have a climax, you have to have something like, against each other, whether it's, human versus human, or human versus, the elements, or human versus government, whatever it is, you have to have that kind of conflict. Same thing in children's books. You have to have something to keep them interested in and wanting to read. So it's an entertainment value, but it's also really, it's real life as well. So, and I know you've probably read lots of books as you were younger that had those happy endings in them, because, remember when you're a child, all you have around you is your domestic, right? Our domestic fiction, what you know around you. And so if that's all there is, then those picture books are going to have a happy ending because that's what you know. But once you get a little bit older and you're out in the world in your 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th grade, somewhere like that, those years where you're really going to be reading a lot of children's novels or children's books, that's when we're going to start getting like the conflict and the climax into those books to keep the students interested, real life experiences, and so forth. So nice work. Okay, so our next book, if you haven't jumped in and started reading this one, better get to it. It's a little bit thicker, a little bit longer than the last book that we read, although it's still an easy read, so it's not going to take you, days and days to read it. I would highly suggest reading this entire book because it does, there is a climactic part to this part too, and there are some conflicts in this one, and you'll want to find out how it ends. Although, to be honest with you, you don't have to finish this book to do the assignment, but I would suggest you would. And I'm thinking once you get into this book and kind of, start reading about it, you'll want to finish the end of it. Okay, so the Birch Bark House is a cultural diverse book, meaning that it's from culture that's not mainstream. What do we consider mainstream? Right? In Western North Dakota, it's white middle-class Americans, right? That's not the way the world works, and that's not how we are all the way across the board. And so you have to have books in your classroom, and you have to be cognizant of this as a teacher, that the books in your classroom are going to have a diverse setting. So different places, different people, different cultures, because if you don't, then you're really doing a disservice to your own students about, what's out in the world. And we're going to be trying to expose our students to them as much as we possibly can. Now, I know that most of you will be going to maybe teach in North Dakota, since you are from North Dakota, but I'm going to bring up the website from Montana. This is the Montana OPI, and OPI stands for Office of Public Instruction. And where I found the link that's in your assignment for Birch Bark House is from this website, and I put it on here for a reason. So there's legislative stuff, laws that went through probably about 10 years ago in Montana, saying that we need to have education for all students in the public schools of Montana about the Native American population that we have in our state. And so what they did, a really cool thing, and I encourage you to look this up, because this will help you no matter where you end up teaching. These resources will end up helping you be a more culturally diverse teacher. So if you go to educators, and then over here to teaching and learning, and down here to Indian education, if we click on that, there's Indian education in Montana, and it kind of gives you the resources of why we're doing what we're doing. The tribal relationships and the resiliency, like how Native American students compare to mainstream norm, and then education for all. And I was teaching at the St. Labrie Indian School, and it's on the Northern Cheyenne Indian Reservation, and I taught there for 8 years, 6 of which I was in 3rd grade. And so when this all came out, the Indian for Education for All Act came out, I was right in the middle of teaching students when this came out, and it was pretty fantastic. So if you click on this link, definitely, it's got some great videos in here. There's a video link in here, but what I really like is this general information, because it kind of gives you an idea of why they did what they did. So what they did is they got together and they got everybody that wanted to join in on this project from different tribes and different communities. This is the state of Montana, and this is where I was working, right down here. And they thought, okay, what can we do as culture as a whole? What can we do to bring that into the school systems? And so now all of our Common Core standards in Montana have a Indian Education for All Act sublet to it. So it has, like, every time you have a core standard, it has one that you have to do with cultural diversity, which I think is fantastic. The literature that went into it. So if you are teaching in Montana, you will have to follow the Common Core standards, and in our Common Core standards in Montana does have the sublets of Indian education. I think it's a great idea. So if you are interested, this is if you're a history buff out there, if anybody's looking at maybe being a history teacher someday, you never know, this is a great place to start. So the tribal histories of Montana are going to be in here, and then it talks about the different timelines for the Montana reservations. So I was on the Northern Cheyenne, so if you click on that, it just gives you like a handout of like what happened and the major things that were happening during that time, and it's kind of interesting. Now, when I was teaching on the Northern Cheyenne, there was lots of things that I obviously didn't know. I came from, if anyone's familiar with Lemmon, South Dakota, which is right south of Dickinson, about 90 miles, that's where I grew up, and that's where I went to high school. That's where I kind of lived. And I, too, went to college in Dickinson, so I'm a Blue Hawk. And then I moved to eastern Montana, so I never left that bubble. I mean, and I got my master's degree in Black Hills State in Spearfish, South Dakota, and so I never left that bubble ever. So I have been born here, I've been educated here, I married here, I got my kids here. This whole bubble of the world is kind of where I live in. But there's so much outside that bubble. I mean, you guys probably know that already. I mean, I know you probably have traveled more than I have out of my bubble. But there's so much things out there, and if we don't bring the outside into our classrooms and have that connection with the students, we're doing a disservice. And we can't do that. There's so many times that you'll have students in your classroom that will come from these communities that maybe you don't know a lot about what they did, and you don't want to be offensive to anybody. You don't want to be unkind. And so sometimes we say things and don't really know if that would offend somebody or be culturally wrong. So this is a great place to start. So North Dakota does have something similar to this, although I feel that the Montana one is a little better put together for Montana. But it's still one of those things, if you read about it and find out about all the stuff that they're doing for just the history of the tribes, the current conditions of the tribes, and then all of the Common Core curriculum that has Indian education like sublet to it. it's really, really beneficial, I think, to all. So that's why this book kind of like falls into that place. So and I think I'll go back to where we were talking on our website here. If you go to the content page, and then you're going to go to class assignments. Class assignments this time is the Birch Bark House. And so the link that I'm giving you above does come from that website that I just showed you, and it's in OPI, Montana, and it gives an in-depth study, like a literary unit on this book, and it was published through the state of Montana. And so your assignment this time is I want you to do some searching on the internet to find out what other lesson plans, what other unit plans have already been developed about this book that you think are quality and that you would use in your classroom. Now, that's going to be kind of a loaded question because you've never been in the classroom and you've never used like a unit before like this just because of experience. You will, don't worry, you will. But what I want you to do is look through it and think, is this something that I would be comfortable teaching or able to teach, or is this the biggest bang for the buck that I can get? So I want you to think, to look at several different websites and lots of different unit plans. They're everywhere. This book is very, very common. You're going to find them everywhere. Don't pay for anything. Don't pay. This assignment is not worth paying for anything. So if it says subscribe, don't do it. Some of them have like memberships that you have to sign up for, like education.com, but it's free. But don't pay for anything. So once you find the lesson or the unit plans that you're happy with, pick one activity or lesson that you think is quality enough to use in your classroom. And then we just want a one-page explanation of why you chose that activity and where you found it. And just be aware that I'm going to be sharing all of these activities together. I'm going to upload them to a file and then give them out to everyone so everybody has the same resource, or you all have resources on the best of the best for this teaching this book. So technically, you don't have to have this book read to do this assignment. Like I said, I probably shouldn't say that, but that's the truth. Anyway, I definitely would, because it's going to be meaningful. It's a meaningful book. And if you pick a activity that's quality, you're not going to know it's quality until you figure out what's in the book. So when I say quality, I mean it's like, what is going to be worth your time? What is going to be teaching these students enough that's going to be worth your time to get the materials, get the resources, plan ahead, execute the lesson, and is this going to be worth their time? So if you think about, is this hitting a lot of different standards? Am I hitting a lot of different ideas? Am I too focused? Whatever it is, you got to figure out what you think is quality for your classroom. And for the discussion, this next week is going to be just about what you found. It doesn't have to be like tons of stuff on the discussion this week because we are going to be sharing those one-page explanations with everyone. So maybe for the discussion this week, you just give me your thoughts. So, and don't be afraid to like spill the beans on what's happening on these books because everybody's supposed to be reading them anyway, right? And so tell us what you think and give me specifics, like what really resonated with you and what there's some things in here that could make you angry. What made you sad? So pick one and kind of chat about it. Some of us have been getting kind of lax on the discussions, like 1 or 2 sentences. That's okay, but you're really not giving me a lot to work with. So give me a little bit more. So what did you like about this book? But maybe you hate it. That's fine too. You don't have to love every book we read in here, but that's probably what I would probably focus on for the discussion. But as far as the assignment, know that what you write is going to be shared with others in our classroom. So by the end of, probably by next week, everybody's going to be getting a file folder through email with everyone's assignments in there, and that way you can look through. And I'm assuming there's, 15 of us in here. There's probably going to be 15 different resources, and it might be a good thing to put in your back pocket in case you ever decide you want to teach a book like this. So underneath this video, there's going to be a couple other videos of culturally diverse books that I would be, I would think are quality books, but also use them for your annotated bibliography. Good grief, I talked a lot today. Sorry about that. Anyway, hope you guys have a great week, and if you have any questions, please let me know. Thanks again for all of the videos and emails. I appreciated them. If there's ever a chance where you don't want to type something out in a discussion, throw a video up there. We'd love to hear you. Bye, guys.